What's going on, you guys? Thank you so much for joining me back on my YouTube channel. I really do appreciate it. Today, I'm going to be going over 5 reasons why you need to buy a Nissan 350z right now. All right, so I scribbled down 5 things right here, and I know there's a tons more reasons why you need to buy a Nissan 350z, but these are just 5 things that I thought off the top of my head, and after doing a little bit of research as to why I think you should buy one now and not a moment later. Let me know down in the comments if you think these are good reasons, or if you have any reasons opposing these as to why you shouldn't buy one right now, if you think it's a bad investment. I think it's a pretty good investment, and once you hear what I'm about to say, you might change your mind. And every time I find a parking lot with like nobody in it, a car always rolls up and has to park like 4 spots away from me. And I always feel awkward like filming because I know they're just listening to me. Like I know they're just listening. So, whatever. All right, so the first thing I have right here as to why I think you need to buy a Nissan 350z is that they sound amazing and for not very much too. Obviously you can spend, $500, $600, $700, $800 on an exhaust, but I'm not saying you need to do that. I only spent about, I wrote it down. I spent $181 exactly on my muffler delete, and they just put 2 metal pipes right there instead. And I also ended up using the stock tips as well, so I didn't spend any money there either. And the car sounds amazing. I'll put some clips in right here. So I don't know if it's the way they routed the exhaust or something, but with the muffler delete, I'm always worried that it's going to sound raspy or something, but it actually doesn't sound raspy at all. I think it sounds really good and really clean. That's pretty much just number 1. I think the car sounds amazing and you don't have to spend very much on it. So the third thing I have written down right here is that the aftermarket community is huge. There's parts everywhere from full carbon pieces to fiberglass pieces and polyurethane. Everything you can think of is basically on the internet. There's a huge list of manufacturers and people creating things for this car. And the best thing is they're not too expensive. It's not like a GTR or something where you're spending, $500, $600 on a front bumper, So I think if you're looking for a car that you want to put your own personal touches to, the Nissan 350z is definitely a great option because the aftermarket community is just huge. So another thing I wrote down right here as to why I think you should buy a 350z right now is the livability. So of course it's a hatchback and there's not a whole bunch of space in the back, but honestly for a little sports car, compared to the Miata, there's a whole bunch more interior storage space in this car than pretty much any other 2-door car I've ever driven. I had a 2013 Genesis Coupe before this. It had nothing near the interior storage this car does. Between the cubbies and the doors, you got this, cubby here in the front. You got the glove box behind the passenger seat and the 2 mini boxes right above that box. You have the center console. And I don't know if anyone talks about this, but there's like these huge rectangular squares about this big and they're like this deep underneath the seat that you can totally store stuff in. Nobody talks about it. So, if you have something small you need to put under there, you totally can. It's a great spot to put stuff. If you watch my last video or 2 videos ago, I referenced a storage spot inside of the glove box that I didn't even know about. So they're just everywhere. And I think it's a pretty awesome thing that Nissan was able to implement so many storage spots in this car. It's kind of a small car, so the fact that they were able to do that is pretty awesome. So another thing I wrote down right here is that if you look for similar cars of the same year, there really isn't much, and for the horsepower numbers as well. So I've Googled some other cars from like the mid-2000s era, just to see what was competing with this car back then, and you had like the Mustang, you had the Miata, S2000, stuff like that. I still think this car, beats all of those other cars just because of the modability and just the way it looks. I think Nissan did an amazing job designing this car. The rear-wheel drive aspect of it with the manual transmission and just the power it came with from the factory, like 280 horsepower or 287 or 300 for the rev up. Then the HR came out, which had even more horsepower. I think this car is just an amazing competitor. And even to this day, compared to like 2017, 2018 cars, this car still competes really well. So, just in my opinion, I think from like the mid-2000s, this car was really the best car you could have gotten. Oh, come on, allergies, don't do this to me. I'm so close to finishing this video. My allergies are gonna start kicking in, I feel it. It's crazy to think that back in like the 1990s, the top of the line sports cars were producing 300 to 400 horsepower. And just 10 years later, the exact same type of car, manual rear wheel drive, producing, 300 horsepower horsepower is completely attainable for like $8,000. So I think that's just a huge thing. Obviously you can buy a Miata, but if you're looking for a little bit more horsepower, this is definitely the car you should get. So we've talked about the sound, the aftermarket community, the livability, and just the other cars you can get around the same model year. The last thing I wanted to talk about before I end the video is that the car is pretty much done depreciating. I know you can find a few examples for like, you know, 3,000 or 4,000 that have like around 120, 130,000 miles on them. But if you want to take a little bit more time and look for an example that has around 75K miles, I promise it'll be worth it. Because think about it. So I just think about it this way. If I can find for around 8 or 9 grand a car that has around 75K miles on it, it is way more worth it in my opinion to spend the money on that car versus a car that has, you know, 130,000 miles they want 4.5 or 5K for. You're going to end up paying 3,000 or 4,000 more for the car, but you can double the miles of the entire car and still get like 2,000 or 3,000 less than what you paid to begin with. Like I had a 2013 Genesis. I bought it only 3 years old. I bought it in 2016 and I owned that car for 3 years. I bought it for $22,000 and by the time I sold it 3 years later, it was only worth $12,000. So I did not want to make that mistake again and go for a newer car. I wanted to get an older car that has pretty much reached, you know, base depreciation. And I think the Nissan 350z is an insane value and it's basically there. It's basically reached base depreciation. And the low mile example ones are actually increasing in value. I know you can find, like I was saying, a 75K mile car for around 9,000 and they're going up too. A friend of mine I know has an 08 with 22K miles on it. That thing's worth like 15,000. So it's just insane what you can find out there. These cars are definitely collector's items with the modability, the way they sound, the way they drive, and just the performance you get for the price. I definitely think this is a car you need to go out and buy right now or definitely soon. The way the car looks, I just don't think there's anything else on the road competing with it for the price. So that's basically going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you learned something, please drop it down below and please hit the like button as well. It really does help me out in the algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button because I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your guys' help to do that. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.